I'm live. Hello, lovely people. Can you hear that guitar okay? Um, okay, when I was a kid, somebody showed me the box scale, right, that everyone knows. If you don't know it, you should. I'll make a wee printout of the scales I'm talking about later and make them accessible underneath. Let me know if you can hear everything. So everyone learns this scale, right? And sometimes after a while, you can feel a wee bit stuck with the scale. Okay. And we maybe learn another scale that goes with it. Like, for instance, I learned this scale after that. Right. So you have this one. And you have both of them together, right? So what you want to do is what I do with we lead guitar students. Oh, I can see you. Yeah, hi. We want to try and connect any scales that we learn as patterns. We want to kind of increase our lateral kind of acuity on the guitar. We want to be able to get from here to here. We want to be able to visualize the other options that we have to kind of break out of the shackles of this kind of over symmetry of the box scale. So how can we do that? This is a very simple exercise. I call it like the subway exercise, right? So instead of just having one continent of scale and another one, what we want to do is kind of create this big giant Pangaea scale of 2 or maybe 3 scales. So the fretboard kind of becomes this, like they used to have those light up guitars, and you could see all the notes. That's what we want to kind of create, not so that we can endlessly, shred all over the place, but so we can visualize options and break out of kind of cliches maybe that we're stuck in. Okay, so if we're in this, say we start with we'll learn both of these scales, right? And then the little kind of butterfly scale. Here's a good way to try and connect them. It's a very simple little exercise. You can do this for 5 minutes. It'll really help you. You can just pick a string, okay? And you can climb up this scale and say, okay, I'm going to switch from one scale to another on the 4th string or the D string. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. 4th string. And then you can pause for a wee minute and you can wait and you can visualize the next scale. You want to train your eye to see the whole shape. So right now I'm here, but what I'm seeing is this, okay? So our eyes can take a snapshot of a scale shape and can really know it, just like a chord shape, that only it has like 10 notes as opposed to 4 or 5. So I'm climbing up here and I'm saying I'm going to switch subway tracks on the 4th string and I'm going to take the subway into Brooklyn, whatever. So I go like this, switch subways, look, see it. And then you're on your way home and you take the same subway route on the way home. See the other scale. So I'm here, but I'm seeing this, right? So I go switch subways. Okay. You do the same thing on the 2nd string. You climb up. And then I see the rest of the other scale. Maybe I'll slide up. Okay. And every time you do this, you're kind of welding your scales together. And so if you want to sound a wee bit more like, Stevie Ray Vaughan or, Dave Gilmour and kind of have this kind of freedom in your pentatonic soloing, this is a great way to kind of weld the scales together. I'll do it again on the third string. Switch subways. Visualize, see it. Okay. And if you train your eye to do that with the little snapshots it has, you're just going to connect these scales into one big Pangaea scale. And obviously we can do this on the other side too. So for instance, especially if you're using the pentatonic scale in a major context, you know, it's great to start with this box scale because we can think of this as a major scale as well. If we just start with our pinky. Obviously in certain pop contexts, most of those songs are in a major key. So you're going to use that. So we can also think of this scale next to it. Right? And you can do the same thing. You know, you can just kind of connect them. Third string, switch subways. Visualize it. Visualize the regular box scale and go back into it. And you're training yourself to see and to predict. And eventually it'll kind of just become one big thing, right? So the more you do that, the more you kind of increase your territory on the guitar. And our ideal is to get the guitar to be completely in our heads, like we know where we are and we know what we're doing. So say I even learned, I think it's always good to have a fifth string scale kind of memorized in your fingers, just because certain parts of the guitar, like a sweet spot, right? So say, a lot of times, Jimi Hendrix would be down, in the key of E, and he'd have like a fifth string scale. So you have this kind of sweet spot area you can milk that might fit along with your chords, kind of Black Dog. I think that's like that. So a fifth string scale can be very useful, and it can connect you with the rest of the more regular scales that you know. And then even in the key of A, it can be a good in-between scale, because say, this maybe is a bit high unless you're really right. So, and maybe this is a bit kind of, you need something more expressive than being down here. So you could be here. And you may just want a certain sound, that's different, bending a certain string that feels better. So then you can start to increase your territory and kind of put your flag down, and really take over the whole fretboard and see it in your head. I can't see any more questions. I guess they might be stuck. Oh, I do feel a bit stuck in the 5 pentatonic boxes. Yeah. So you want to be sliding around laterally. You want to have this sense of that you can go places. So you can play that wee subway game anywhere from scale to scale. But say you just know 3 scales. Say you know this one, and you know this one, and then say you know this fifth string one. Then you've really got the whole fretboard, because it's easy to get from this one, and then you can visualize and then this one down at the bottom, it recycles up here on the wee mini guitar. And then you've got this one up here, the original one. So you can kind of connect, and you can have the whole fretboard at your disposal. Okay. Now there's one more other wee thing. With kids, I usually call this like the super scale, and this is a good way to think about the pentatonic stuff as well. Is when you're a lot of times you'll see guitarists play and they're really not in the box, the kind of first box you learn. And I don't know if they're consciously doing this, but I call it the pentatonic kind of super scale because it's really just three identically shaped little scales, right? That are, are the five notes, but they put you in a context where you can kind of use the prime bending note with your third finger. Okay. And which means it has two support fingers. Okay. So say I'm in A, right? And I do this. I come up from underneath and go, and then slide in. That's a pentatonic scale. It's got five notes, right? And then I do exactly the same shape in the middle strings. And it's the same shape because there's no discrepancy between the third string and the second string being tuned to a major third. They're all in fourth. So, okay. So if you can start to visualize those three little mini scales, that's very useful as well. So you get this kind of in that BB King zone. And you'll notice that a lot of like Eric Clapton, he never really goes down here. He's always going, even in like Sunshine of Your Love, if it was in A, right? So you have that wee scale, exactly the same shape. And then you have up here. And what that does is it puts your third finger in position to kind of milk those band notes. Okay, so those are ways to kind of maybe break out a wee bit of, if you're starting out to play lead guitar or blues. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, maybe better than me. But these are ways that you can kind of extend yourself out sideways. And then eventually you can get more crazy with it. You can play on one string. And if you can see all those scales, you can visualize what's on one string. You can put on a wee backing track or something to play along with. Running out of notes there. You can just visualize it, right? So you could do that, or you could pick two strings that you're going to use. You could say, I'm just going to put on a wee backing track on YouTube, and I'm going to play only on two strings. Anything that gets you out of your usual kind of stuckness and your kind of the cliches you're in. So you could just play on the top two strings, etc., right? So anyway, that might be useful to you. Okay, if you have any questions, fire away. And if you have a question, it's about a certain thing in particular, you can maybe preface it and make it a wee bit quicker, like classical, blah, 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 songwriting, ask your question or whatever, or just life in general. And if you've got any questions. What happened to the questions, babe? Or no, it disappeared on the.
Oh, did it?
God.
You need help?
There it is.
You got it?
Don't see any questions. you have any recommendations for classical? Okay. I'm inside in North Carolina. I usually just wear this jacket. I mean, the air conditioning's on, but just because it's when I'm practicing guitar, I like to have a sleeve. Um, Not really sure what exotonic scales are. Maybe you can help me out with that.
Do you have a recommendations for classical?
For a classical, what is that?
Maybe composers or players?
Wissam, do you have? Can you be more specific with your question? Do you have recommendations for like classical exercises, or buying a classical guitar, or listening to classical music? I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Lateral exercises.
Oh, lateral exercises for classical. Well, with classical guitar, you're kind of. Let me see. I'll get my classical guitar. I haven't really done when you're moving on the classical guitar. This is maybe a little tip. It would be helpful for you. You're trying to develop your eye to be this kind of extra finger in a way, right? So, when people are going hiking, right, and they've got those wee sticks that they're using, they're climbing around and they lean on something, and that stick gives them a wee bit extra, support. So, say you're playing classical guitar and you're going from this fifth position area, and you're just playing around here, right? And then you're going up here to this E. What you want to try and train your brain to do is to look before you go and really use your eye like one of those hiking poles. So if I went and then I look, a lot of times just by looking, that'll help you in that lateral movement, be very accurate. So just a wee look with the eye before you go. That's one of the real fundamental things you can do. I don't really do too many lateral exercises. I warm up with, little scales. Okay, so I don't know if that helps you. If you look up, there's an amazing thing that Rene Izquierdo did for I think tone bass or something like that. If you look up Rene Izquierdo warm up, like he's one of the best guitarists in the world, and he gives this very thorough like group of exercises to look into, which is pretty amazing. And he does a lot of lateral stuff that I just don't do, so that might help you there. Classical, how do you keep your nails in shape? Don't they wear out using your steel string guitar? I'm actually really lucky, Vincent, because my nails are really well shaped. They're just kind of made for playing the guitar, and I know that'll make people hate me all around the world. But I've played, I did a Yes the Raven show a week or so ago, and they just don't really wear down from the steel string. I know that sounds absurd. So usually something you can do though with your nails is to keep them to not let them get too long, obviously not too short as well, but too long, and to keep them polished, right? So even if you're using a steel string guitar, you're still having a lot of frictions happening, right? And the more polished your nails are, the less that it's going to catch or create a little dent or a little, wedge that it keeps getting stuck in. So no matter what the guitar is, the only time I've ever had like a nail stress or problem is I was getting ready for a bunch of recitals, and I guess I must have got my nail down a wee bit too short on my thumb. Now, thumbnails on classical guitars will wear out more because you have the serrated bass strings, you know. So a lot of players put a wee bit of tape, you know, like packing tape or sellotape inside their thumbnail and then wrap it over, and you'll see them with a wee bit of tape or masking tape or something, so it doesn't wear out their thumbnail. But the other ones are just, you know, clean and clear, and you're not going to wear your nails out with that. Okay, I don't know if that helps you. What's the most exotic scale that you find most useful? Um, well, I don't really think in terms of scales usually. Usually, I think in terms of harmony, right? So sometimes when I'm composing, I have a certain mode that I use that's based, that I think of it as based on being between two parallel minor chords, right? So I I kind of derive a scale from that. That's just a kind of a tonality I hear, which I think of it as a kind of an augmented mode, no matter what particular mode of it you use. So that can sound kind of exotic because you're formulating, you know, there's more half steps. So half steps are the kind of the most expressive scale, you know, thing in music, right? Half steps, they have tension and some kind of release or some kind of doorway into another harmony. So there's lots of different modes that I like, you know, and you know there's you know, the Lydian mode is very attractive in a sense because it has this kind of upward disembodied feeling, because the fourth isn't resolving down back into the ground, you know, so it's kind of that kind of, and then like the Dorian mode. Yeah, so Dennis, like the Dorian mode then is kind of like the little brother of the Lydian mode. It's kind of like the minor Lydian mode in a sense, just like the Aeolian is the minor kind of little brother of the Ionian major scale. So you have that same sense of disembodied upwardness, the same airiness of it. So say if you're in A Dorian, then so in it's like, because the gravity that we associate with a minor scale is the minor sixth kind of pulling down into the fifth. So you in like in classical music, you hear that da, dee, da, right? So the Dorian mode has this, dee, da, da, right? So that's what the Dorian mode does. Any question? Thanks. Green from Fife, Scotland. Wow. Very good. Wow. Well, you're recording some Bach. Brilliant. Well, cheers. Thanks for stopping by. Sorry to disturb your recording. What players, songwriters have inspired you lately? Oh, ooh, lately. What? Songwriters lately. I'm trying to think of help. I don't know. Not that much lately. I do listen to, you know, there's obviously various classical performers I love, you know. Daniel Trifonov. Been listening to him. Songwriters. Not sure. Yeah, I like to watch for sure. Absolutely. The Netherlands Society, the Bach. Can I play any piece from Ramen? I don't know who that is. Sorry. Hello from Portugal. Wow. Hello. Are you in Lisbon? Or I'd love to go to Portugal. And I don't know why, but I just visualize myself like plucking an orange off a tree and being in that beautiful light by the ocean. It's a very beautiful sounding place. Any thoughts to share on Joni Mitchell? Um, yeah, well, Joni Mitchell's obviously a very free spirit. I mean, that's what I would kind of take away the most from Joni Mitchell. I almost think of her as in the same sense as I was thinking like Jeff Buckley or something, a very kind of brave explorer, who kind of almost improvise. I'm not exactly um, hi from Bulgaria. Brilliant, Bulgaria. Have I heard Playing God by Polyphia? Sorry, I haven't. I've just heard of like the Beatles. I've heard any alternate tunings you like exploring. Alternate tunings, I do use dadgad when I do Irish music. Um, I don't particularly know why. It's just, I guess it's kind of a drone based thing, and it's not as much a functional harmony type thing with dominant tonic relationships. So I use dadgad a lot because a lot of times I'll have those droning fifths and tonic notes to kind of support the melodies and what I'm doing with that. So, and then when I'm doing yes the Raven stuff, sometimes I'll just tune the bass string different. If I want a certain tonality. So in that Abilene song, for instance, if you've heard that, I tune the A string down to G and the E string down to D. So I've got this kind of big kind of chord support. It means I can just do more stuff over the tonic chord as well, and it has just a better kind of tonality for support if you want to do a self-accompanied solo kind of thing. Or Josephine, I just tune the low string down to D, and it means I can kind of have this basic chord running away while I can do other stuff. Okay, Mark, I don't know if that answers your question. And there's one song on the YouTube covers record is actually I tuned the E string up to F, which can be a bit interesting, kind of for the key of A minor, but also if you're doing kind of a Lydian thing, talking of modes, like so for instance, if you just tune that note up to F, immediately you're in this Lydian mode with no fingers even. So you can really and it just creates a support network for a kind of a Lydian mode. So okay. Okay, so I'm just reading these questions. Dennis, Alan, which instrument is good for beginners? Depends what you want to do. Depends what your aspirations are. With a guitar, if you're a complete beginner, I would start on something really easy to play, like an electric guitar, or maybe even a classical guitar, just so it's easier on the fingers. The less pain you have, sometimes the steel strings can, or else get your steel string guitar set up really nice and easy. Um, Joni is often listed among most influential guitarists. Yeah, not really with me. I obviously grew up as a wee kid, in the middle of all that heavy metal kind of widdly stuff. So it was more electric guitarists got me into guitar, and then I got into jazz and classical guitar. So let me see. When want oranges come to Florida? Yeah, I mean, probably most of the orange juice I get comes from Florida. Do you play Augustine Barrios pieces? Not a lot. I mean, I've taught people playing, La Catedral and his famous waltz. Kind of coached them through it, but I haven't done any of those in a concert. Um, has Rick Beato shown you those videos of Aiden Essen? Yeah, I know Rick pretty well. Like he would talk when I was recording with him, before he started doing all the YouTube stuff. He would be very enthusiastically talking about Aiden, and talking about his days back in school with him. And yeah, so was familiar with him before the whole YouTube thing. Pittsburgher watching from Germany. Wow, awesome! Last day of a 3-week tour. Looking on your website, haven't seen any upcoming concerts. Is there another place to look? Yeah, I'll be doing some a wee slate of classical things in October. That's kind of the nearest thing. We just haven't updated some of the stuff. I'm doing being part of a big show. It's like a group of musicians in Charlotte, North Carolina, next Saturday, and then I'll be doing some Irish stuff also in Charlotte with a Tosco music party. John Tosco is a guy that organizes a lot of big stuff, and so I'll be doing a Yes the Raven song at his big Tosco music party, and then I'll be doing some Irish music with Belfast Boys there, and then I'll be doing some wee local things. I'll be doing a classical show on the 17th at the White Horse in Black Mountain, North Carolina, near Asheville. So I'll be doing a kind of a classical thing in a jazz type listening room lounge on the 17th, I believe. Of September. And then there's a wee slate of things in October where I'll be playing near DC. I'll be doing a recital near Washington, DC, master class. Then I'll be teaching a thing at Yale on, I think, the 2nd or something. I'll have to look into that. No. It's a wee bit. The 18th, sorry. And then I'll be doing a classical recital for the New York Guitar Society up there, and then playing a gig up in Rochester. And then I'll be doing a wee Yes the Raven thing in New York on a Wednesday around then. So we just need to get that stuff up. Do you play any Giuliani? Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of Giuliani things when I was younger, especially just little arpeggio things. And I used to play his kind of Folias de España variations, I remember, when I was younger. Not currently, not in my recital thing. Hello from Switzerland. I just recently came across the Tonets, which is German for tone mesh, which is a grid of pitches and triads. I haven't heard of that, but it sounds very interesting. Maybe leave a wee link in the comments. And classical, do you teach a student from a book or single repertoire pieces? What would they be for beginner? Yeah, when I'm teaching beginners, I usually use, my teacher did a great book for Mel Bay, the Stanley Yates series, in American, the Stanley Yates series, Yates, called Graded Repertoire. So he has 2 books that kind of get you through grade 1 to, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something like that. So it's got good wee pieces that are cool, and like the most attractive of the Soar Giuliani type studies, Carcassi. It's also got some modern pieces which sound kind of cool and interesting for beginners, and gives them nice variety. It's also got little pieces by Mertz and Napoleon Cost and stuff like just. So that's what I would usually use for a beginner, but with more advanced students, I'm usually working on their repertoire that they're choosing, that they're into, and how can we make this musically, artistically good? How can we solve physical problems, etc., etc. Thank you. I want to buy your album. Let me know about shipping prices to Europe. From Eduardo. It's unfortunately very expensive to ship things, but if you want to buy a CD, you can do that through the website. It's like $15 worth of shipping. It's insane, but that's just the way it is. Other than getting it digital. Do you have any opinions on Brazilian style guitar? Well, I'm not particular aficionado on Jobim and all that stuff, and so I enjoy it, but I'm not like an expert. I mean, I know some Brazilian guitarists, and some of them are classical guitarists. There's an amazing guy I'm writing a piece for called Alexi Viana. If you look him up on Spotify, buy his album. He just came up with this amazing kind of jazz recording. He has a jazz ensemble, but he's also an amazing classical guitarist. So he does both. really, really well, so he's like a world class at both. Hi. How are the magic fingers doing? Well, they're doing okay as long as I warm up. Um, are you coming to LA? Yeah, I'm trying to get a little thing going in LA through. There's a classical kind of YouTube station called the Guitar Salon. Where you go and play all these expensive guitars and play your pieces on them. So I'm talking to the lovely people over there, and I'm trying to get a couple of concerts together in LA for the classical stuff. Now, if that happens, I would love to be able to do, my songs too. I'm just not really sure what the best place is to do it in, or the right venue for the Yes the Raven stuff. So, I mean, if I'm doing a bunch of classical stuff, I'd like to be able to sneak a little bit of songs in there too and do the songwriting, but separately. I don't really like to mix and match during an actual night because you're in a certain framework. Do I teach my kids? Well, yeah. I mean, when they were very young, I didn't really kind of force them. I would do a little bit of piano stuff with them and let them, because the piano is so kind of instant, and taught them a little bit of guitar. But my son just started kind of teaching himself during the pandemic, how to play the piano and how to read. And so I coach him more now just in phrasing and stuff. And we talk about music, but he has a really good piano teacher who's kind of through the Moscow Conservatory that teaches up in a local college that's really brilliant. So I try not to force it into, once you start to make things like homework, there's an automatic reaction in all of us to be like, ugh, no thanks. You have to have your own intrinsic drive. You have to have in your own fire. So whatever my kids are into, I try and kind of encourage them with that. My daughter's a wee bit of a songbird, but she's a bit stubborn like me, so I don't force her into things. I just kind of encourage her. If she needs a question answered, or so it's always best if you're intrinsically motivated. So did you ever come across the album Twice Around the Houses? No. That tonnets thing, that sounds very interesting. I have to look into that. Please keep us uploading any trips to LA. Yep, San Diego. I have been to San Diego a long time ago. Obviously, we went to the zoo when Dorian was just a wee thing. I was actually carrying him around most of the time. And I had a cap with the gorilla on it. It looked like a cool place. I like that. I like all kinds of Mexican food, but I like, obviously I lived in Texas for a while, so I love real Mexico City tacos and stuff. But I also love that kind of Californian. I guess it's like Baja. Is it Mexican food with the a bit of pineapple in there and the seafood in it? It's great. I know you're primarily interested in classical pop songwriting. Do you ever play in jazz groups? Well, when I was younger, I mean, I had these aspirations of kind of doing jazz, but and I wanted to be Pat Metheny, at the same time as I wanted to be like Christopher Parkening or Elliot Fisk, and so I kind of evolved out of me being out of the widdly world, So, I wouldn't say, I'm just not, if I really took an interest, and I got into playing a lot of improv, I mean, I'm comfortable improvising, but not like in a bebop trio or something, but I do a lot of improvising, when I'm producing other people in the studio and stuff. I have to do guitar solos. I have to make up stuff. And composing is kind of like improvising in slow motion in a way, but I don't really have, I don't, in terms of real straight ahead jazz, I'm not sitting around memorizing, thousands of 2-5-1 licks, because I just have to do what I'm into, But I like it. I like listening to, Miles Davis and, all the staple, jazz stuff. Okay, thank you very much, Mark. That's very generous of you.
Yeah, your singing. Did you see that one? Your singing voice.
What's that when I'm singing? Oh, your singing voice is enviable. You break from full voice to head voice and undetectable. Yeah, I mean, basic kind of singing advice. Anyone can do that. You can. I like to think of you can practice your singing maybe in three different volume levels. Not that kind of depends on the instrument you're playing. So if I'm doing my finger pick guitar, I do. It's more of like a come into my little space kind of volume level. Like Elliott Smith or Jeff Buckley, right? To where the guitar itself is very quiet, so you have to mix it with the sound of the instrument. So whenever you're singing in a very quiet level, your voice is going to break into your head voice a lot earlier, a lot lower. So if I'm like here, on this day, I'm kind of in my head voice if I'm singing this quietly. And then if I'm in a more conversational, like say you're strumming a guitar around the campfire, oh baby, this is a song about singing. You're going to be using your normal chest voice, right? And then as you get louder and you're trying to project more, obviously your chest voice is going to come up higher, So I just kind of know when I was in the band, for instance, and I was really putting out a lot of sound, I just knew wherever my chest voice would end, it would be kind of around this E, or this. So it would be like, and that would just be all chest voice. But then you can also break into it earlier if you want and be like, so it just depends what the volume is of your dialogue with the audience. So if you're in a wee room and you're doing this kind of sensitive finger picking thing, or if you have a mic and it doesn't really, your voice, it's not depending on your voice to project, you can sing very quietly and have a lot of control. So the louder you sing and the higher you sing, you're spending the air very quickly, almost like sitting on a whoopee cushion. It just goes, But if I'm singing in my head voice, like it's like it's just like a wee tiny hole in a balloon, and you can be like, so that's just one breath. So you're spending a lot less air, but if you shout out, if you're like Aretha Franklin or Bono or something, it's going to be like, I want to run. It's over, breathe, So those are the main differences with the singing. Okay. Hope it didn't scare you with that loud singing. When you're in a wee cubicle with students and you sing really loud, they always freak out. Hi from Canada. Wow.
Just see Uncle left that tacos on me.
Yes, tacos sound awesome. I'll always eat. And the best tacos are always free tacos. Yeah, we have an amazing wee place in Hickory, North Carolina here called Las Isabellas, which is just like stepping into Mexico City, and you have great tacos. Do you ever get weird musical dreams? Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have musical nightmares. Actually, I have dreams where I'm not prepared, or I have to do a concert, and like I don't know the music or something's wrong, like I don't have a guitar. So I guess they're the usual, showing up in school naked type things only for musicians. So I don't have, and sometimes I have dreams like, a very weird thing happened with the chaconne, the Bach chaconne, why I kind of started that whole kind of pilgrimage with the Bach stuff, as I actually had this dream that I was playing the chaconne in E minor, which was a very strange thing, but it was a very lucid, real dream. And I talk about it in a wee interview with my teacher, Stanley, about the Bach stuff. It was a very real kind of dream, one of those weird kind of, almost like a William Blake kind of dream where I could hear it in the dream. And it was like, oh, makes sense. And I didn't even have my classical guitar with me. I woke up and just had a steel string, and I was like, yes, this is the right key to play this in. And then I recently had a wee dream. Sometimes when I'm thinking about stuff a lot, I guess it'll get into your subconscious or in your dreams. I had a dream about one of these really famous pieces that I'm arranging, kind of putting a fresh coat of paint on this very famous Albanian piece called Asturias or Leanda, or Prelude as he called it. And I'm kind of doing this new way to play it. And in my dream, or in my kind of in between waking thing, I came up with a solution to kind of do that, right? Does the flex that diaphragm? Wallace's guitar mixing and vocals. Yeah, I love the sound of that Jeff Buckley album, Grace. It's incredible. And the orchestra, the strings that are, I forget the guy who did the strings, but those are great too. It's great. Hi from Australia. Hello, Hamish. You'll never beat Hamish. Brilliant. Australia is full of Irish and Scottish people. Must be a brutal place. Hello, Alan. Some advice on how to practice tremolo technique. Hi from Bosnia. I mean, I'm not necessarily great at tremolo. I haven't played a lot of tremolo pieces. I used to play like recuerdos, but I would suggest usually people that have problems with tremolo, it's usually there's a wee bit of a hitch between your P and A, your thumb and A finger. So I would work towards making your A finger arrive perhaps at the same time as your thumb, or very close. So if you did something like this and practiced your tremolo, maybe just in triplets, and make your thumb and A happen at the same time, right? So if you went like this, so say you did that for a few minutes, and then that might help, make it smoother, right? So, and then you're also trying to just be relaxed, I guess. I have a piece that I've written that's a tremolo piece that's one of the movements of like a 5 movement piece. So if I'm going to record that, I'm going to have to work on my tremolo just like you. But there's a really good, I would recommend looking up, David Russell did a masterclass. So if you just look up David Russell tremolo on YouTube, he's got an amazing tremolo. He's got several amazing tremolos. And, I listened to that, a while ago, and it'll have some very helpful tips and little exercises. So maybe once I start having to record my own piece that's a tremolo piece, I will help you with that and have more ideas about it. Usually when I just struggle with things, I invent little exercises to do, like just because I have to get it done. And what is the thing that's going to help me? But first of all, you have to realize, what is the problem here? Is it a problem of your nails? Are they too long? Are they getting stuck? Is it, are you clicking? So you got to practice your preparation, touching the string with your flesh. And so there's lots of, tremolo so complex, but so beautiful that you can't resist it. So I hope that helps, Dragon. and greetings over there in Bosnia. I had a friend called Nerman who I went to school with, and my master's degree was from Bosnia. Greetings from South Africa. Wow. Do you have a favorite slide guitarist? Well, I love Johnny Winter, all his guitar playing, but I love it when he does, that amazing uh, version of Highway 61, Bob Dylan cover, because that's kind of begging for somebody. A lot of Bob Dylan songs are, if you're a blues guitarist, like Johnny Winter, and there's so many great Bob Dylan songs that are just blues songs that are just begging for like kick-ass guitar player to break it up with amazing solos. Obviously, Derek Trucks is like a great slide player. I'm not like a super like aficionado with that or anything. I mean, I just use the little mini slide as a different voice when I'm doing my folk songs to add a little bit of, like a solo or some kind of different texture. Um, but obviously, the Allman Brothers and all that stuff. I love the sound of that, of Ry Cooder. I like things that sound with electric guitar. I like things that sound a wee bit kind of dangerous and a little bit um, almost off, out of control a little bit. Um, so I hope that.
Relaxing your hand.
How do you come up with the? How did you come up with the name Yes the Raven? I could tell you, but I would have to kill you. Do you transpose in your dreams, Ian? Well, when I'm going to sleep at night, or if I'm listening to music, like when I'm thinking about, I spend a lot of time listening and auditioning beautiful pieces, usually piano pieces, to arrange for classical guitar. So if I'm listening to a piece, like I'm arranging Claire de Lune, very famous Debussy piece right now. But if I'm listening to some Chopin piece that might be a possible candidate to play on the guitar, a lot of times I'll audition it in my head and in certain keys, kind of using your relative pitch. So you hear the melody, whatever it is, So if you think about that first nocturne, I could see it in my head. So I might hear it there, I might kind of see it. And you kind of see where it lands and how you can grab the bass strings, etc. So yeah, I would definitely audition things in my head, and when I'm trying to figure out the right key of something, which is really the most important thing. So I don't know if that helps, Ian. But yeah, I could definitely see the guitar in my head, and I can see all the possibilities. Hi from Norway. Wow, Norway. Love to go to Norway and tromp through the fjords. The best show on Netflix. I can't believe that they canceled it after 3 stellar seasons. Norsemen, amazing show. Norsemen, it's a comedy. I think in Norway it's just called Vikings, but you have to watch Norsemen and demand that Netflix give them several other seasons because it is incredible. It's like The Office, like the UK Office, only that's that level of writing. And I just laugh so much watching that. Okay, relaxing my hand enough for clean tremolo is one of the hardest things I need. Yeah, you have to be kind of zen, but you also have to build in the normality of being relaxed. So there's a lot of right hand stuff that you can do that you just you have to actually practice emptying all the time, emptying your fingers. So whole classical guitar technique is about the action and then the immediate emptying of energy, because your fingers, when you've got your fingers in the right position, they just come back by themselves much quicker than we could put them back, in a way. Yes, I definitely have heard of Nick Drake. Yeah, especially those first 2 albums. I love those a lot, and they kind of influenced me. I guess I was maybe listening to that like when I did the strings for like Cold Dark Age and kind of arranged the strings for some stuff like that. I guess I was very inspired by like the Riverman songs like that. Trying to find all these questions. I pitched you to program organizers to be invited to perform at the Oregon Box. Oh, that would be awesome. That would be great. That would be so. I'd love to go to Oregon. Oregon and Seattle. They kind of remind you a lot of Ireland when you go there. So the rain, obviously, and the green, but just the kind of the coastal. I don't know if you see that poem that I put up. Um, that's from the north coast of Ireland, which is just so beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Me and my wife were able to go back home for a couple of weeks, and when you see the coast of Oregon, it kind of reminds me a lot of that, and it's just looks amazing. It's got oxygen. I love places that have oxygen. Alan, did you ever cover any Pat Metheny tunes? Huh. No, I mean, I did play a festival recently where a guy did like classical versions of some Pat Metheny tunes, which sounded really cool. And I know Pat Metheny actually wrote a classical piece for Jason Vio, who recorded it. So if you look up Jason Vio, Pat Metheny, it's actually really good. You know, a lot of times you'd expect, you know, was this just going to be some kind of Joe Pass type thing or something? But Pat Metheny obviously uses the nylon string a lot and has a great imagination. And when he's in a context where he can compose art music and not have to just kind of play on the seat of his pants, he's obviously going to write something that's really interesting, and it's maybe a bit more difficult than you could just improvise. So if you check out those pieces, Rick actually played them too, and I was down there about a month ago, and he was like, "Have you listened?" And I hadn't actually listened to it, but it was good. It was really good. Hi from London, brilliant. I'm an amateur guitarist who hasn't played much since my kids were born. Understand? Got two kids myself. I want to resume playing. Do you recommend getting a teacher? I mean, there's so many different ways. It depends what kind of style you're interested in, um, Gregory. Um, Obviously, we can all learn a few chords in a day, or you can kind of push that stuff if you're into singing songs. There's tons of stuff online. I mean, I don't know even about courses, but there's just tons of video and information. Obviously, a lot of it on YouTube is very dubious, and a lot of it's kind of like secondhand knowledge that they're just kind of farming out. But there's so much available. When I was a kid, I just learned completely by ear and learned by myself. So there's so much stuff. If you want to just learn some songs, there's amazing. If you learn how to use tablature, there's amazing things that you can get a subscription to that have all the songs in the world and how to play them. Ultimate guitar, yeah, stuff like that. But I would recommend using your ear. Learn like a scale, learn like a pentatonic scale, learn different kinds of scales, the kind of music that you want to play with your guitar. Um, and just kind of keep playing and play along. I get my students to play along with. There's a great video of Stevie Ray Vaughan playing with Albert King. I think it's Albert King. He's kind of like his musical grandfather. And instead of just playing even with a backing track or just playing on your own, listen to them playing, because Stevie's really like reining it in. You know, he's not being kind of too fancy because he doesn't want to outshine, kind of like his musical grandpa. And they're just really talking with their guitars. And so if you play along with stuff like that, I really recommend, because then you can hear stuff and try and imitate the phrases. You can play along with them, you know. That's a great way to kind of get stuck in, I think. That greetings from Russia. Top 5 favorite bands / artists. Ooh, top 5. That's tough. Like songwriters. Well, you know, Lennon, McCartney, John Lennon, a little more, perhaps less kind of novelty songs. Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Tom York, Nick Cave. A lot of those are more on the lyrical side, but It depends even what kind of pop music we're talking about. Hi from Brazil. Found you this month. Your playing is inspirational. Thank you very much. Is it quite amazing the mix? Thank you. Well, I just there's a certain time where I was finishing my master's degree. He was talking about the mixture of classical and other styles. I got to a certain point where I really had to write songs. There's a wee interview that's on my channel about when I went to this U2 concert. And that's really like, it was like this amazing epiphany where I had to write songs. Before that, I just wanted to be this as good a classical guitarist as I could be. And then I had this thing where I just had to write songs, and the story's kind of in that wee interview I did. So check that out. And so it's not really almost by choice. It just kind of happened that way. And then I had to write songs every day. And then I wanted to start a band, got a wee bit bored of the academic world, the kind of the classical guitar scene or whatever. Not because it's boring necessarily. It was just what I just wanted to write songs. And so I did that for a while with my band, and then developed a lot of skills having to get a band together. And then I came across my own solo style, where I started to use the guitar by myself. And then more recently, I kind of my own love affair with just the guitar itself, and the classical guitar kind of came back in a sense by its own. So that's maybe why I do those different things. I just get bored of something and then do something else for a while. Um, Lilyhammer, yeah, I think I watched the first season of Lilyhammer, and it's good. I mean, it's kind of an American in Norway kind of thing. But that Norseman show is amazing, and the reason why it's amazing is because they film it obviously in Norse, but they do it in this English, this hilarious kind of English, and they mix all of these modern metaphors, and the characters are just so funny. It's just a genius show. It's really ingenious and insane that Netflix didn't keep that going. When you think of the drivel that Netflix puts out every day, it's a crime. It's actually like an international crime. Interpol should be looking into it. Hi, Alan. Sorry if this question is repeated. No problem. If there's any questions that you didn't get answered, I'll answer them. But can you give some advice for singing for beginners? Doing it simultaneously with playing the guitar. Yeah, well, when you're doing it with the guitar, I would practice singing just with one chord, and just so you're trying not to think about the guitar. Some of those things I'll address maybe in a little tutorial, because a lot of times it's their strumming is the problem, and they're not strumming correctly, and therefore they're using too much of their brain to do the strumming, and then the singing's difficult at the same time. But you can just practice your singing in general. I would practice singing scales numerically. So if you're in C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go back to 1 to practice leaps. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1, 1, 7, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. Right? And you can do that with any modes you want. So it's just singing in general is good to have the confidence of singing, and then also recognizing pitches. So if you just go randomly over to a keyboard, bum, and then la, sing it, or just find la, try and train your ear, your inner kind of recording device that's in your ear, your parroting device. This is the thing that we're really built to do as human beings, is to see things, hear things, and mimic them. That's why we think of parrots as being closer and more intelligent, or ravens, than humans, because they can mimic things. So we're great mimickers. So just watching things and listening. And so in our singing, just hearing a note, trying to record it. And I actually taught this wonderful kid who has autism, and he had a very bit of difficulty singing. He was an amazing guitar player, just instantly, just kind of born with it, and he could sing, but he wasn't connecting, and even in the same key as his guitar. And I kind of had to teach him to listen and record it, and then sing the thing that was recorded in his head. And now he's a wonderful singer. He's like a really good wee singer. So that's one of the biggest things you can do with singing is just even singing along with stuff that you like, singing your favorite albums, singing along with your favorite albums. I don't know if that helps you. I haven't been in the north about 10 years. The show Carnlough. Oh yeah, it's just beautiful. Obviously with the the troubles dying down, it's much easier to get up to the north. Like I'm just so enjoying being from Belfast and kind of visiting places like Sligo or Connemara, and you go down into the south and it's like, these are my brothers down here, and I'm really enjoying just the hope of a new, hopeful Ireland, and I love being in Dublin, but it's amazing. Yeah, some of the north coast is incredible, and you got to go to the Mournes too. I know the Wicklow Mountains are beautiful too, but the Mournes are amazing. I don't know if that helps you. Julian Lage. I actually have heard of Julian Lage. Is it Lage or Lage? Only I've heard him do some high level jazz type stuff just on YouTube. But my friend Matt Feeler, if you look up the silentp.com, because he has a weirdly spelled name, so he just goes under the silent P. He's the guy that designed all of my CD covers and music stuff. So he did a CD cover for this album, the Julian Lage. I don't know how to say it. He did it with the guitarist from Wilco, because he does a lot of stuff like posters and stuff for the band Wilco. And so he designed their CD for them, I'm pretty sure. What's my favorite beer, Mark? Oh, that's a great question. Well, I've had all the beers, because obviously I just grew up at a time when all that kind of beer stuff happened in America. I guess I like a really good IPA, but I really love nice sours, sours. Sounds like a deadly virus. But I like sours a lot. So I love Belgian sours, especially like the fruitier ones. There's an amazing one. What's it called down at Wicked Weed in Asheville? Asheville's kind of like a miniature Portland.
Angel of Darkness.
Yeah, there's one called the Angel of Darkness. It's like it's this kind of mecca. It's like this holy grail of all beers. So it's made with all these dark berries for like a year, like blackberries and blueberries, and just meshed in there. And it's like an imperial sour. So they kind of give it to you in a wee wine glass, which is a bit depressing, but because it's expensive too. But I like that's one of my favorite beers. And other than that, I've just kind of had all the beers, so I don't go to the grocery store anymore, like I used to, and just stare at the big wall of beers. I'm kind of over that. Sometimes I just like a beer flavored beer now, so I get Modelo Especial, which I really like, which is very crisp and clean, kind of lager. So that's what I usually get nowadays.
There was a question about inversions and voicing.
Oh, inversions and voicings? What?
You missed it, so I thought
Oh,
you might
sorry.
want to answer that.
Where is that? Inversions?
What are your
Sorry,
thoughts on inversions and voice leading and songwriting?
Oh, very good question. I'm actually going to do a tutorial thing. Well, with the tutorials on songwriting and stuff, what I'm probably going to try and do is use songs that I really like, and use them as a kind of practicum course. Like, let's go into this song together and see what makes it kind of good and why it works. I kind of get into that a little bit when I'm doing my own songs and tutorials and stuff, but in a very simpler way. So I'm going to do this wee series called Secret Chords That Please the Lord. And I'm actually going to do a wee tutorial. It's funny you said that, because I was going to do this tutorial on the Lana Del Rey song video games. And I was going to talk about inversions with that. Inversions are very, very important, because they're not just the chord itself, you know. So it's, you know, when we think of like an A chord, right? But when you have this, it is an A chord, but it also isn't, because it has so much implication with that minor third and the. So inversions are really this in-between world of connecting bass lines and creating an emotional, real power in songs. And it's much more complicated than just another version of the root position chords. Totally something else. Yeah, Netflix has X'd. Narcos are the best shows I've seen on Netflix. They do some good like true crime things, I guess, too, right? Yeah, you know, it's very disturbing, but I find myself watching those things out of, I don't know. I guess it's like Beowulf, those true crime things. You know, you gather around the fire, someone tells the story of a monster and how whatever Beowulf killed. You know, so I guess the police are like Beowulf and the bad people. That's
Grendel,
why
the
Grendel
the
is
Grendels.
the true is the crime. You know, so I think that's what the deep thing is with those true crime things. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Check there.
Large.
Is there another question that I missed, babe?
I don't think so, unless I missed it too. So
Thank you. I find myself hitting notes while singing flat for a semitone or two, and then I can hear it on a recording. Yeah, recording yourself when you're singing and you're trying to get better at singing, recording yourself, although it's brutal, you can sometimes be pleasantly surprised or you can be unpleasantly surprised. Obviously, hearing yourself is the big thing, and being able to adjust. But a lot of times, what people do, this seems maybe ironic with like a singing problem, is if you are too afraid to sing and adjust your intonation and your pitch, a lot of times that happens when people are too mousy and they can't actually hear themselves. It's not going into their kind of their skull and their ear canal. So if you're too mousy, a lot of times you won't hear yourself and you'll sing out of tune because you're afraid of singing out of tune, if you know what I mean. And you'll also not produce enough air, which is a recipe for being flat. So a lot of times it's better to swing big and feel big and then hear yourself and adjust and be able to hear yourself. So singing is so personal, and I understand there's such a psychological hang up with singing, not just because of the absurd television like American Idol or The Voice, you know, which I'm not, you know, a big fan of. That kind of stuff. It's because then when people associate singing with it's so personal. So if someone criticizes your singing, it's almost like they're criticizing you because it's part of your body, you know, it's part of your singing. So it's a very personal thing, singing. And then when you have all these shows that are about judging singing, you know, I only like those shows for the initial part with all the train wreck singers come in. I love that stuff, but I don't like the good singing parts. It's completely boring and pointless to me. Any other things I didn't see, babe? I'm listening while driving through Tennessee. Wow, on my way back to Kansas City. Awesome. Pat Metheny is from a nearby suburb. Oh, interesting. Very good.
So Lage is large.
Large? Like with a silent R?
It says I saw Julian Lage, quote, large, Larg.
Oh, larg? Maybe it's
larg. Oh, is it larg?
Maybe it's larg or log. I don't know.
Probably.
Log.
That would make more sense. Larg.
Yeah, maybe it's like some kind of, you know, Scandinavian thing or something. But my favorite Julian is obviously Julian Bream.
What about Julian Strokes?
And then Julian Casablancas would be his second. Yeah, he's one of my favorite songwriters. Thank you for the tip about Page Capos. I'm tickled. Yep, the Page tacos. I'm thinking about tacos now. Page capos and tacos. Yeah, these are great because they stay on your guitar, and you can wind the wee thing on the back, and you can not to put too much pressure. And then if you're doing another piece that doesn't need a capo, you're laughing all the way to the bank.
Soft G. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Lodge.
the Lage. Maybe it's Lage.
Recording program at home.
Well, I just use Pro Tools, when I was making that record, I guess with Rick, I just had to teach myself to use Pro Tools because and I usually get freaked out by computers, and like for instance, this live stream wasn't working when I started, and technology freaks me out. I don't like technology because it never works for me, and I feel like it personally knows that I'm trying to use it, and then I turn into the Incredible Hulk, get very angry. But I taught myself to kind of use Pro Tools in a very basic way, and then I recorded that first Yes the Raven album. Most of the takes are at home, and I would take those basic things over to Rick, and I would work on strings, and he would mix it, and he would add all the EQ and reverb and stuff. He actually bought a plate reverb for that, a real plate. Rick always likes tinkering with like the real things, you'll buy when I was there with the band, I mentioned some kind of octave pedal or something, and he was just immediately on Amazon or eBay, and he just bought one. And anything that, and he likes trying things out. So usually, Pro Tools. Large. Is that how you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? Large. Soft G. Large, yeah. Do you ever mic up for classical? So, yeah, absolutely. Like if I'm in I'll mic up the classical when I play like this listening room, for instance. It's not like an acoustic, that's a normal recital thing. So if you just get a decent wee mic, like, pencil condenser mic, and get it, close enough, or, any kind of decent mic. I mean, the playing is in your fingers. But then if you take a moment, if there's just a regular, guy doing the sound, and just try and look for the right hall reverb, maybe, and get a good 4 seconds on it, 5 seconds, you can actually replicate even the feel of being in a recital hall, with that longer reverb, and maybe not so much in the monitors, but just kind of feel the room. And I was pleasantly surprised by that. I did it a while back, I wasn't sure. I was just like, let me try a classical thing in a regular listening place that, I do my songs. And I was expecting it to kind of be a disaster, to be honest, but we got it set up, and it was really actually kind of good. It was really pleasant. And I love playing for people who aren't, I like taking classical music out of the context of the usual kind of snobby academia world, a little bit. And I understand that world, but it's like, I like to have the elitism kind of taken away from it, because it's just music. And when you get, just people who love some kind of music, or they've never even listened to a lot of classical music, but they're kind of intimidated by all of the big words and the snootiness. Maybe it's just being Irish. I kind of have a wee bit of a chip on my shoulder like that, but I like it, So I played like the Chaconne in this listening room one time, and there was this wee lady at the bar, and she was like, I don't even think she came in for the concert. I think she just came in because she knew the bartender, and she was really, really moved, because I was telling a story about Bach's wife dying, and then I'm writing this big piece and all this stuff, and she was really, really like in tears, when I was playing it, and afterwards she was like, that piece that you were telling about with the guy, and I was like, yeah, you just get the CD there, take it home with you. And so that gives me a lot more satisfaction, for instance, than a lot of things. Even if some big famous person, obviously that's great when they like your Bach recording. But I love it when there's just regular folk can make a connection to just music and high art music. And it takes away that separation or the intimidation of it. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying yes. Sometimes I do mic up the guitar, and John Williams does that. John Williams has done that since like the 80s. He has his own wee, small amplifier, and even if he's not in a huge hall, he'll mic it up because that's the underlying problem of the guitar. You can work away in all these details and sophisticated nuances of expression, and you're playing in some hall and you can barely hear it. It just sounds like this plingy banjo thing, and so if people can't hear it, it's a bit of a problem. So I have no problem, with micing it up if it needs it at all. I mean, it's great to play in a nice hall. You can really hear it, but the guitar is about the beauty of the sound, and just a little bit of a mic can really help you get more nuance and more dynamic. Oh, thanks for stopping by, Brian. What is that half slide you use? It's just a wee half slide I bought at the local music store. I just saw it, and the reason I actually always keep it in my pocket. Let me see that guitar pin. And the reason that I use it is because with my Yes the Raven stuff, it's obviously built to be just me and the guitar, right? So if I have this wee half slide on, I just always keep it in my pocket, and I've got a couple of spares in the drawer. But it means that you could do normal voicings and you don't lose your pinky, right? You could just use it as a normal finger, But then and you can also do things that are kind of self-accompanied a wee bit, as long as it fits, and still change, the texture. It sounded crap. So it's just another wee different sound, that you can do that's like highly expressive that I like. I love pedal steel kind of guitar, and there's some stuff I like to do that maybe imitates that a wee bit. Never performed classical, but played gigs and do sound. Never in that situation. Yeah, and music's gotta connect to people, and especially classical music too, which is such a small market and such a, a lot of the time it's just this thing that's painted as something for the highly affluent or the highly educated. It's just music. I mean, Beethoven said that I write music from the heart to the heart. A lot of people like Bach were under the employ of these princes and nobles and the church, the Lutheran church, but they Bach was thrown in jail for visiting some place that he shouldn't have, and his sons performed the double violin concerto, one of the most amazing pieces of music, outside a coffee shop in Leipzig. So Bach, was a very down to earth guy, obviously. Music's usually at the whim of people who can pay for it, obviously it's great to have things like Patreon now, wink, wink, like where people can give you a little bit of money and then it can add up to something. But a lot of times that's the relationship, where art is funded, A tutorial on Home of the Brave would be nice. Yeah, I could do that for sure. Home of the Brave, that's just a song. It's on the album Abilene, which it's not in physical form, but it's in digital form on
Soon.
Bandcamp and stuff. And what's that?
It will be.
Yeah, it will be soon. I'm actually going to get some LPs pressed, I think, sometime. Love is Covered in Dust and Abilene. So, any more questions? Did I miss anybody's question? Sometimes if you're not into classical music, it's great to just find one piece that you like and one piece to connect to. It's really beautiful. And sometimes people discover those through movies, even like that incredible piece I'm arranging for guitar, Clair de Lune, the famous Debussy piece. It's just used so well in, if you've, one of my favorite films of all time is Frankie and Johnny with Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer. And that the music, Clair de Lune, is just so perfectly used in that film, that where it's supposed to be just touch the human heart, in a very real way. And I really lament a lot of films these days. There's some of them that are almost about classical music or about classical musicians, and they have this kind of made up version of classical music, and it's not, when you think of Stanley Kubrick, how well he's used real classical pieces like Bartok, The Shining, or obviously 2001 Space Odyssey. It's a real shame people don't know music enough. It's very bizarre. So find one piece that you like, or listen to the Chopin nocturnes. If you don't enjoy listening to those, there's something wrong with you. You need to go see a shrink or a doctor or a priest or something. Do you write music, then lyrics, or the other way around, Cal? It depends on the song, I mean, usually I'd be kind of a music first person, like a lot of songwriters, or I get a melodic idea or something. But on that Abilene record, I actually had a lot of lyrical ideas that kind of were there first. And strangely, the easiest way to write music is when you already have the lyrics, because words have their own music to them. So even when I say that sentence, words have their own music to them. Ba ba da ba da ba da ba da. It has its own rhythm that's kind of built into it, right? So, but I'd usually be kind of a music first person, or might have like just one line or even a word. So when I wrote that Abilene song, for instance, just that word Abilene kind of came out with that strange chorus. And then I had to build the meaning kind of backwards from that. Sometimes I'll just mumble nonsense and record myself on Pro Tools. And then I'm kind of panning for lyrics or ideas. I'll listen and be like, oh, it kind of sounded like this. And you'll get a beautiful phrase that you wouldn't think of normally. And then it just kind of comes out. Or when I wrote that bullet tripped the gun, I mean, that's a very strange sentence. I'm still not quite sure what it means, but I'm still intrigued by it. And so that's what I like, lyrics like that have kind of an otherness to them. I'm a fan of Piazzolla transcriptions for guitar. Yeah, I actually thought, there's an amazing performance of Oblivion. He's talking about Piazzolla, the Argentinian composer. And there's this amazing touching point kind of recording that I love. It's on YouTube. If you look up Gidon Kramer playing Oblivion with his, he has this little troupe of string players from Eastern Europe, the Baltic areas that he tours with. And he's one of the great violinists of all time, so he's like the Julian Bream in a way of the violin. And so he plays Oblivion, and I would use that for students to show them, like, this is how you play music, like from this very deep place. And so that inspired me. I was like, well, I'd love to do a version of Oblivion on the guitar. And then that guy, Dukic, I think is his last name, did an amazing recording of that piece recently. Duci, I forget how to spell his name. He's a brilliant guitar player, but he did an arrangement of it. It's very, very good. But I had like different ideas. If I did Oblivion, I would almost have to add pieces that are slightly improvisatory and a bit more kind of gritty and not as nice. A lot of the classical arrangements of Piazzolla to me are a little bit too nice, or I don't know, they're not brutal enough to me, um, to get the kind of the essence of the music. Um, Debussy and Chopin are probably, yes, absolutely. You can start with Debussy and Chopin, even though Debussy wrote some strange music. But for instance, something like the Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. A lot of the pieces that are like my top 10 classical pieces are like these kind of like 10-minute orchestral type tone poems. So if you want something to try and listen to, if you're not into art music, try and listen to the Debussy's The Prelude to an Afternoon of a Faun. Very cinematic music, very influential on movie composers. And then you have something like the Prelude to Tristan and Isolde, the Wagner piece, which is just an amazing piece to kind of close your eyes and put your headphones on. Or a piece by Ralph Vaughan Williams. Just look up Vaughan Williams, like a Welsh spelling, not the Dutch spelling. If you look up the Fantasia on a Theme of Thomas Tallis, that's an incredible piece to listen to, right? Or if you've ever seen the movie Platoon before, they used Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings, another kind of 10-minute masterpiece. These are good things to listen to, and just find a point of entry. And you don't have to try and like things. You don't have to try and like music or poetry. You just have to allow yourself. You have to just be open, and if something kind of gets you, then that's your point of entry. Get on. There are some wicked guitar arrangements of it out there. Yeah, I'd have to. I mean, with me, I'm such a kind of a guitar snob, to be honest. It's like a confessional. Zoran Dukic, that guy's awesome. Yeah, to me, that's the best kind of Piazzolla on classical guitar that I've heard. So if you look at, thanks, Fabrice. He's an amazing guitar player, that guy. So yeah, I mean, I have a problem to where I hear a lot of times, if it's an arrangement, I hear an arrangement and then I just hear the thing that I would do differently with it, or I hear the thing that disturbs me. So a lot of times there's amazing arrangements and I'm like, wow, that's just great. But a lot of the times that's what makes me want to do an arrangement, because I hear these people doing Clair de Lune and I'm like, oh my gosh, they keep doing this wrong. They're changing the octave in the middle of a phrase. The guitar is so clunky and doesn't sound right. So that's what makes me want to do the arrangement. It's just like, let me do this for you, kids. But that sounds very arrogant, but it's, that's kind of the position I'm in. Good to hear you like Radiohead. Oh yeah, I love Radiohead. That's kind of like my band in a way, I mean, even though I got into writing pop songs through U2, I mean, when I was younger, when I was a young whippersnapper, I really got into Radiohead, and then a lot of those bands like Interpol and The Strokes are some of my favorite bands too. Classical, I find Vivaldi and Tchaikovsky. Yes, absolutely. Tchaikovsky is very underrated, and so is Rachmaninoff, by the way. But yeah, I love Vivaldi. I mean, sometimes people think of Vivaldi as simplistic, but Bach was obsessed with Vivaldi. Bach was, he arranged, I don't know how many concertos, quite a few, I think it's 6, something like that. And Bach, when you listen to Bach, a lot of things that separates him from the other geezers at the time is he has these amazing passages where he embraces like diminished harmonies and these kind of very complex diminished harmonies. A lot of times that's the thing that's Bach when you're listening to the radio, because there's this amazing kind of diminished thing, and Vivaldi has that as well. And sometimes I wonder if Vivaldi even influenced Bach in that part of his writing. But a lot of people put down the four seasons. Classical musicians will call them the four seasonings because it's just so popular. But it's just so good. It's popular because they're all like, I mean, every movement of that whole cycle of four concertos is just so memorable and moving, and I love that. And I have kind of a secret fantasy of arranging the winter Vivaldi. That particular season is my favorite of that set. So I have this kind of, I don't know if it's possible, but I'd love to arrange it for solo guitar properly. Um, I really love that music. And there's tons of Tchaikovsky. Obviously, it's amazing. Tchaikovsky's a great melodist. He's a great melody writer. Um, yeah. In a duo situation, what would be your favorite instrument? Thanks, Fabrice. Um, yeah. Yeah, the duo set with the guitar, it's a little bit difficult because the guitar's so quiet, So a lot of times when I hear guitars with a violin or with the cello or even a flute, a lot of times just the overtones just get so kind of owned by the other instrument, the guitar. So if the guitar's not mic'd up, I kind of always have a problem with that. I like two guitars. Guitars are great together, and maybe the best amount of guitars. I mean, a really great guitar quartet can play together. But because of the nature of the pluck, and how kind of percussive it is and dramatic it is, it's very difficult to get guitars to play together, and well, as opposed to instruments that have a soft entrance, like a violin bow or a flute, or, so guitars can be problematic like that. So a lot of guitar ensembles, for instance, a lot of times it's just a total nightmare for me. But I first Vivaldi's Salt, followed by Pepper. Yeah, Salt and Pepper. My favorite Wagner piece. Well, to be honest, I mean the two bookends of the Tristan and Isolde are my favorite Wagner pieces. The Tristan prelude and the death song. I forget how to pronounce it, Lieberstone, or something. I forget how to say it. But if I heard that in a concert, it would be incredible. That would be just as good as any symphonic experience. If I heard that prelude followed by, obviously it's a lot to leave out the whole story, but those two pieces to me are of that. What I love about Wagner. Guitar and piano, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of 19th century guitarists like Diabelli and Carulli wrote stuff for guitar and piano forte, and obviously the forte piano, however you say it, is a lot softer, and a lot closer to the guitar in a way, So you perhaps like a duet with an old style forte piano and guitar would be good. I think that would be better, but it would still be kind of loud compared to the guitar. The only thing better than one guitar is two guitars. Yeah, that's a saying that is often attributed to Chopin, although Chopin, I'm afraid to say, didn't actually say that. But sometimes, he could have. It sounds like something Chopin would say. But my friend Stanley, my teacher, him and his friend, they make a hobby of finding out these things that gets turned into sayings, and they a lot of times they're not really said by Beethoven or Chopin, but I like to think of Chopin saying it because I love Chopin. I was writing too long a comment and it got lost. I was going to say the Four Seasons sound so modern. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean the Four Seasons. Well, in fact, I think Larry Coryell did it with Yamashita. Doesn't sound too great, his steel string with Yamashita. But yeah, Vivaldi is very much. It's not that Italian style of Baroque music is so completely different than the German style or Northern European style or the French style. which is highly ornamented. The classical, it's almost like a classical style, the Baroque music, because it's just harmony, and there's rarely any counterpoint at all. So in a sense, it does sound more clean cut, modern. What do you think of so-called minimalist composers? People like Philip Glass, Steve Reich. Um, yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I mean, a lot of that to me, is obviously this kind of reaction to serial music, atonal music, and um, there's a lot of Philip. In fact, there's a lot of Philip Glass movie music I like, which somebody was saying. Brian was mentioning how um, Vivaldi sounds kind of modern. If you listen to some of Philip Glass's movie scores, a lot of times they sound like Vivaldi or something along those lines. And just embracing the triad, as like a reality. It's not just a theoretical, subjective aesthetic choice that's equal with all other choices. It's more of like this issue of chemistry and reality in terms of our emotional responses to music. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, that kind of, but maybe, I guess maybe more of the Eastern Europe minimalists, like Arvo Pärt, maybe, or Goreski would be more in that kind of minimalism would be more inspiring to me. And then you have like Monpo, who was even predates a lot of those guys. The Spanish composer. I love his music, Mompou. It's like a French sounding name, but he's Spanish. And he wrote this beautiful set of pieces for the guitar, but I love his piano music, it's very restrained. And that would be a big influence on me, just to be courageous, to just, you know. Chris Thiele's mandolin rendition of a Sonata Number 1 in G minor passed the Mearns transcription test. Oh, I'm sure it does. I mean, I don't, but I guess Chris Thiele probably doesn't. There's not a lot of transcription going on. I mean, because the mandolin is basically a violin. It's the same pitch, the same tuning. So he's going to be playing basically exactly what the violin would play. So it's more of a direct playing it like but I do like the way it sounds on Bach's violin music, solo violin. I like the way it sounds on guitars, and maybe a mandolin would even sound better because the notes aren't going to get cut off. You're going to be able to sustain certain voices where the violin can only imply it by doing those kind of ring kind of chords, which are a bit annoying to me. Different trains. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Matheny and Steve Reich together. Yeah, I mean, and there's something about Steve Reich and Philip Glass maybe that to me are attached with the sound of cities as well. And there's a certain minimalism I like. It's more of like an inner minimalism. It's maybe just, yeah, Monpo is Catalan, right? Absolutely. Being not an English, native speaker, I was wondering what wee lesson means. It just means small. Don't know what your native language is. Petit, poco, a little lesson. It's not really to do with English. It's more of an Irish thing. It's just an Irish interjection that means to minimalize the importance of something or make something small. Like it's not a big lesson. It's not a big deal. It's just a wee lesson. Does that make sense? Have I missed anybody's questions? Well, I'll probably wrap things up then. Oh my gosh, I've been waffling for ages. Yeah, the guitar, that classical guitar does kind of sound like a piano. It's an amazing tone. A wee bit of trouble with the Garda. Yeah. I wonder if you ever heard of any Agnes Obel's music. No, I haven't, but I will check that out. Not complex. Yeah, sometimes things being complex for their own sake doesn't necessarily make it good. I'm only interested in music that just the payoff that moves me. And sometimes that is from a place of sophistication, but sometimes it can be very, very simple. Thank you, Jess. Um, do you like flamenco? Yeah, when I've always listened to. I'm not like in the same as in the jazz thing. I'm not like a aficionado or anything, but I love Paco de Lucia, and I actually cried when Paco de Lucia died. I don't know. There's something about him reached beyond just the. It was almost like he was the soul of Spain itself, and yeah. But I would listen to him maybe more than any others. But yeah, I love. I'm making a Spanish record. It's not flamenco, but it's has Spanish pieces. Some new ones that undiscovered type things and arrangements and some strange new ways of playing famous pieces. So I love the allure of Spain. I love the allure of Spanish culture and sound. The beauty of it. So anyway, I'll end it here and get some dinner. Well, thanks for tuning in, and all the best. Toodaloot.